the chat while we're going with this, kind of where we are today. So
That's amazing. So I'm normally Team Cat 100%, but I am visiting my friends up in Tahoe, and they have 2 dogs, and they're so sweet. I will say Team Cats.
Oh yeah, you're gonna want if you're in Tahoe, you're gonna want like a big dog to dig you out from that avalanche with like the little thing of whiskey around its neck. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I also should share that I'm drinking out of a Team Cat mug today, so for all intents and purposes, get it? I'm Team Cat.
For sure. Okay, I'm sorry. I could keep going. What are we talking about today? I feel like somebody
cats
here went to
Hawaii.
I
was going to start by giving a quick rundown of what happened at Snapdragon Summit, which is our big annual event. This is the 9th one. And I have been to every Snapdragon Summit. The first one was in New York City, and after that they were in Hawaii.
Why?
Why Hawaii?
It's more that how can we go?
Yeah, I would say talk to, there's people you could talk to at Qualcomm, but so why Hawaii is actually an interesting story. Which is that Snapdragon Summit brings people together from all around the world. What it is it's an opportunity for about 350 key journalists, analysts, and insiders to have access in person to Qualcomm experts, partners, OEMs, and software developers. Yeah. And so it's a place where these 2 groups, the press and analysts and insiders, and the Qualcommers, executives and software developers and partners mix. And so a reason that it's in a sort of isolated place is actually to make serendipitous contacts between these groups possible. Because if you're just flying in for a 2-hour keynote, you go in, you watch a keynote, you leave, you might as well have just been home live streaming it.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're with people for a couple of days, there are all of these opportunities for contact and communication between all of the different groups there, even between, different groups of journalists and analysts, as well as serendipitous. When I was a journalist, I used to kick it with Cristiano on the porch at the end of the night, which is like an opportunity that you wouldn't normally get.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then why Hawaii? The 2 biggest initial groups coming were from North America and Asia. And
nice. So in the middle.
It was calculated as halfway. Yeah.
High 5, Nick. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Which makes perfect sense. Like if you were doing North America and Europe, then New York or even Reykjavik would make perfect sense. But Hawaii
every year I put in for Reykjavik. Every year I'm like, we should move this to Reykjavik. They don't listen to me, but like it is my dream that someday we are going to Reykjavik.
It's pretty awesome. If you haven't been to Iceland, Reykjavik is the airport there. Just amazing springs and northern lights. It's amazing.
A really nice new convention center too.
Nice. I didn't even know there was a convention center. I've just flown through it a couple of times and been like, this is wonderful.
In one of my past lives, I wrote a travel guidebook to Iceland. So I've been there a bunch of times. Yeah.
What?
I've done a lot.
One of my past lives was as a travel writer for Fromers for like 8 years.
Amazing. So we're all going to quit and become travel writers again? I'm listening.
The economics of that business have gone not so good.
Yeah. That's about right. I don't know if you guys have been monitoring even get.
Just getting to what happened at Snapdragon Summit. Let me just do a 5-minute talk about what happened at Snapdragon Summit.
Go for it. Tell us.
And then we can get to the stuff of the chat, which is what we're really here for. So we basically announced two big products at Snapdragon Summit and a bunch of little things. The two big products were Snapdragon 8 Elite, which is our new mobile chipset. And what I have here is one of the first Snapdragon 8 Elite phones, which is the Realme GT7 Pro. And Snapdragon 8 Elite is the first chipset to feature our second generation Orion cores, which are an extremely important technical advancement because this is us developing all of our CPU technology in-house to really differentiate ourselves from all the other competitors out there, as opposed to using any commodity designs. The second gen Orion cores in the 8 Elite, there's two varieties of cores. There's 2 prime cores and 6 performance cores, and they are completely developed in-house. And this sort of brings Qualcomm back to where it was before about, I think, 2016, when before that it was the Scorpion and then the Cryo cores developed in-house. And this has allowed us to do a leap in performance of essentially 2 generations in 1 year, where we have around a 45% CPU performance improvement with a 45% improvement in power consumption. And it also allows us to tune the CPU to do common tasks even better. So there's a 62% improvement when it comes to web browsing performance, because our CPU design team can look at particular applications like web browsing or gaming and say, what's the best design to maximize performance on this popular use case? And so you see, 45% improvement on an average task, 62% improvement on web browsing, because people know they spend that much time web browsing.
Totally.
And so the second gen Orion cores are really the star of the 8 Elite constellation. There's a lot of other things going on there. There's of course a new GPU with a Adreno GPU with a 40% performance improvement. There's a new modem, and now I'm an old modem guy. Modems are sort of how I made my business at PC Mag, and calling out, like, in the world of mobile phone reviews. There were always people who had like a specialty in certain things. Like, I would say there's a guy, Ray Wong, who is great with cameras. And I was always the modem guy. And so the X80, this is the first appearance of the X80 modem. It has more advanced AI in the modem to better seek out connections in very weak signal situations, such as when you're indoors in a parking structure, which is a big use case problem.
Yeah.
Yes. And similarly with Wi-Fi 7, it has our high band simultaneous Wi-Fi 7 technology, which, especially if you're one of those folks who has a very fast home internet connection, basically our HBS Wi-Fi 7 technology uses a lot of 5 and 6 gigahertz to get very high Wi-Fi speeds in relatively unconflicted bands. Some of the competitors use more 2.4, which is a big problem in terms of it being too crowded and too conflicted, and then it can't reach its maximum potential. And the X80 also has UWB in it, which lets you find your keys. So yeah, so we've got the new CPU, we've got the new GPU, we've got the X80. There's a new NPU, there's new NPU. There's new connectivity between the NPU and the ISP, the image signal processor, which basically accelerates the ability to do AI processing of camera data. And then, which is really important. Like the number one use of AI in mobile devices right now is camera.
Of course.
That's where most of the AI is happening. Most of the AI is happening in things like segmentation, which segmentation is, just so I can define it for some people, segmentation is when you take a photo, it identifies the different things in the photo so they're colored or lit properly. This is why you don't have to worry about people being backlit in a smartphone photo anymore, and that has only happened in the past 2 or 3 years. If you look at all of your photos from a camera phone from more than about 3 years ago, if somebody's in front of a window, they're super washed out. And then something happened where they're not washed out anymore, and that's segmentation.
Okay. I saw that happen. I observed that, and I had no idea why.
Yeah, and that's basically what happened when we started adding AI to cameras. So now you can segment. We have what's called unlimited segmentation, where you can segment a lot of different planes of a photo and a lot of different objects to do things like, there's this black backpack in the corner. Can it draw a little bit more detail out of that without washing out the white wall immediately behind it?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things you can do with a more powerful NPU and this high-speed connectivity between the ISP and the NPU. So that's 8 Elite briefly, and it's already been announced in a range of devices. It's already been announced by Realme and Xiaomi and Honor and OnePlus and Asus and Samsung hasn't announced it, but the CEO of Samsung was on stage with Cristiano at our event, so you can draw your own conclusions from that. So it's going to be a big leap forward. And then day 2 at the event, just to finish up, we announced our 2 new car chips.
What is that?
And now so automotive is a big new business for Qualcomm, but it's a thing that a lot of people don't think about, but maybe developers should start thinking about.
Yeah.
Because we are getting to the era of what's called the software-defined vehicle, where these cars' behavior is very much controlled by software running on flexible PC-like platforms in the car, which get to the Snapdragon Cockpit Elite and Snapdragon Ride Elite, which we announced with Mercedes and other partners at Snapdragon Summit. And these are also using Orion, powerful, flexible, AI-enabled systems that go into these cars that allow for a much more capable experience. We also announced a partnership with Google to create a reference software platform, and this is where developers come in. So we're collabing with Google, and Google's software has been in Snapdragon-powered cars for years now, but we're collabing with Google to create a reference software platform so that automakers and developers can create more powerful, better integrated, more complex, still safe experiences. And to give you an example of one of the sort of smaller, sillier things that we were showing at the show in the cockpit, We had a Rivian R1S there. And Rivian, which runs our chips already in the cockpit, they have a mode by which you can change your dashboard to be the dashboards of like famous cars from movies and TV. Yeah.
That's
Oh my
awesome.
God. Oh my
So
God.
like
You can get your car to
You can
talk to
change-
yourself. Right?
you can change you can change your dashboard to Knight Rider.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
Yes.
we're good.
You can change your dashboard to the DeLorean from Back to the Future.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We're
And
gonna
so-
need links. We're gonna need links here. We need to share links. Or
I
is it
don't
all
have that-
hypothetical still?
No,
It's still
I mean
cutting edge.
the dashboards are not hypothetical. I'll have to find that for you later. But
Yay.
yeah,
Oh, Devin,
but
Oh, I mean, if
Devin
you wanna
3000 took a video of it and he's gonna post it.
okay, great.
amazing.
Yeah, so we have this like real like breakthrough mobile chipset, which you're going to see popping up all over the place over the next 6 months, and we have these breakthrough automotive chipsets, which really start to redefine the car as a developer platform.
Yeah.
And then I went on the water slide a bunch of times.
That's the important part. We need exact details. How many times did you go? How fast did you make it at your peak velocity? I mean, that's why people came.
Okay, so there were 2 water
Or
slides.
after filming that video where you're in the pool.
Yeah, okay, so the pool, so that was an infinity pool. That was not the water slide pool. And what happened was, so Miriam Chouar, who is this like legendary tech journalist who has been doing this as long as I have, has a podcast that she does every week. And at Snapdragon Summit, the joke is the podcast is done entirely in the pool. And so I was walking past and she basically just kind of dragged me down and was like, Sascha, be in my podcast. And so I'm like in the pool. And then
Like you do.
and then after her podcast, one of our social media people came by and she was like, this is great. Will you do a promo in the pool? And I was like, I'm in the pool. You know, anything you asked for me in the pool, I will do in the pool. And
Right.
and it was a good day for pool content.
Yeah.
I think then here, so does that wrap up your recap of it? I think we should jump into some questions here. We've gotten a lot so far in the chat.
Yeah, I think we can be kind of freeform.
Okay, yeah. In any particular place, I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen the chat as well. Any particular place you want to start? I'll let you kind of pick, Sascha, because there's been some questions.
I am not looking at the chat. I am letting you guys look at the chat.
Yeah,
So-
for sure.
I mean, do we want to start with Rain? I'll let you pick.
Well, like, okay, so obviously there's been a lot of questions about the dev kits. And I think Maria went ahead and answered, or actually, I want to say a member of the community answered that question once, but I'll officially answer in that, we pulled it because it wasn't quite up to spec, and you should be receiving your refunds via the venue where you made that purchase. That's pretty much
I would
it.
say, yeah, I mean, I would add, not only was it not up to spec, but by the time we realized that, and by the time we, by the iteration that we got to, there were already so many X-Elite devices, retail devices, out in the market from high-quality OEMs who know what they're doing and make really good products, that it wasn't really needed anymore. That there's a lot of X-Elite devices to develop on right now. And you'll be and you should be getting your refund. And we are looking for other ways to delight developers. Sometimes you try something and it doesn't work out, and it's just this didn't work out.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Part of me is like, if I had been outside of Qualcomm and I had made that purchase and I had received it, I would totally keep it because
It's a collector's
that's going
item.
to be, it's a
Yeah, at
collector's
this
item. It's amazing. I would play on it and see what is capable, because now that Qualcomm has recalled it, you know, hey, unless you
haven't
want your
recalled
refund,
it.
of course. Yeah.
We haven't recalled it. We've
Okay, fair.
indefinitely paused it. And the difference is when
Yeah.
you recall something, you want people to throw them out or send them back. But this is a case of we just didn't think it was good enough to put more of them out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Make that call, you know? It's gotta keep the high quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean we're you know, it's in the name. We're quality communications, right?
In fact, for anyone that did not know, that's what Qualcomm stands for. Okay, so that was the fruit. Let me scroll back up because we had set questions from the very beginning. John, looks like Jamel is helping you, by the way, to get you in the session because we have been talking. I'm so sorry that you've had only black screens. There's an initial question from Tuesday we can't talk about, so I'll skip over that. Someone was asking about, I think this might be a good little plug here, but someone was asking about our Snapdragon Insiders. That's a second, group that we have. So there's actually another invite link for that. So maybe I'll ask Jamel, if you're listening, to drop that in the chat so people can join, or I think it has been dropped in the chat. So no, I don't know if either of you guys can speak to how that differs from our developer community, but what we're doing here is more targeted at developers. I'll keep looking through and let you guys respond to that, and then I'll pull up the next question.
Yeah, for sure. So insiders, go ahead, Sasha, you're in.
Oh, okay. So insiders is for fans. Insiders is a consumer facing group where the folks who are in insiders are enthusiastic about using end user devices with Snapdragon technology in them, or following Snapdragon technology the way someone would follow a hobby or a sports team. And so the kinds of challenges and kinds of support that you get in insiders are things like people taking great photographs with their Snapdragon devices and comparing the terrific photographs they take with the Snapdragon devices, or people talking about which Snapdragon device they should buy in various contexts. Whereas developers is kind of in the name. It's developers.
Exactly. One thing I wanted to point out is this server tends to be a wider net than Snapdragon Insiders or AI Hub. Those who've got very specific, special focus, whereas this one tends to be wider. We do tend to send people to the other servers or to Slack in the case of AI Hub if there are questions about those specifically. I see a question that says, will there be an application of all these new chips to robotics? And
Great question.
Yeah, I work in the IoT space more than I work in Snapdragon space. And I don't actually know how the chipsets, do Snapdragon chipsets, are they going to make their way over to the IoT systems?
So
or is
historically,
that
this is a situation where I can talk about what has historically happened. I cannot make statements about future programs.
No,
but
of course.
But historically, you see innovations that start out in elite smartphones, then cascade down to the IoT chipset. And if you look at the IoT chipsets that are out there right now, those are typically, what's the top IoT chipsets, like the 8550 or something?
Yeah, and the 6493 and 2 as well.
6490.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you look at like the 8550 and the 6490, those are what was the smartphone state of the art 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. Okay. That makes sense, though.
Yeah.
Um,
And so you see the way Qualcomm has historically worked is that innovations start out in the smartphone realm, and then as they typically get less expensive to produce because there's been volume sales of them in the smartphone realm, they then end up in IoT. So, that is historically what's happened.
okay. That's a very clear, possibly, just to answer you directly, hybrid robotics. Thanks so much
But if
for
we're
that
talking
question.
if we're talking about IoTs and single board computers, there is a partner that I really want to pump right now,
Go on.
which is there's a partner out there called Particle, and they have an upcoming SBC called the Tachyon, which is
The Tachyon particle?
The Particle Tachyon. It's that direction. And the Particle Tachyon is a $150 6490 based SBC with a modem on board.
Oh.
And I see that as a real just accelerator for people doing things like robotics projects.
Yeah.
Because it's in that affordable space, it's got the power, and it lets you play with 5G, which a lot of other SBCs don't let you do.
Yeah. Exactly.
So the robotics folks, I would definitely look that up as something to experiment with.
I have an article, but unfortunately my chat is frozen, so I can't post it. But if you just Google Particle Tachyon IoT, you'll find the announcements for that. But just to chime in from the AI side too, I think we see something very similar, as, we're going through this boom, let's say, of AI where it's showing up everywhere. And, admittedly, people are probably pretty sick of it. But I think the culmination, if you look maybe 5-10 years down the line, you actually see how we're starting to achieve parity in terms of the ecosystem, right? Is we're moving towards this place where all the different platforms you have, they're capable of maybe not the same thing. We still have cloud servers and we have edge servers, but or edge kits, right? But they can perform the same functions, but then to different magnitudes of effectiveness, right? And so this is all on this, forward trajectory of, okay, we're going to have these platforms that are interconnected and doing, similar things. And you can think about it from a robotics lens or an IoT lens or, an AI lens, but ultimately it's all heading in that same kind of unifying direction. And of course, the forces of capitalism then also, stick their fingers into things and say, well, I need this segment of the market, I need this, et cetera. But in general, there's this trend, bringing everyone together.
And just looking down at the latest stuff in the chat there, just for a sec, I see Hybrid Robotics saying robots are just IoT devices on wheels. Yeah. And then that raises me the question of, are cars robots?
That's a great question, because
I really do feel like it's getting closer and closer to Transformers, in the sense that smart cars are well on their way. Yeah, exactly. Hybrid robotics said it. Self-driving cars are robots. They're just shaped as a car. Yeah. I think we'll get even further along.
Yeah, of course. Questions of what, right? Because now we're blurring new lines. Like if you go back to the 50s and say, what's a robot? They're going to give you the Jetsons, Rosie, who's taking care of all the chores in the house, right? Exactly. Now you have Buzz, right? Are they thinking? Not really, but people count them as robots, right? And then you have car. Alexa could be considered a robot if you have one of those countertop devices that is talking to you, etc. I mean, it's just a robot without arms or legs, for example, right?
I mean, I would draw the line. I would draw the line on that robots have to either move or manipulate physical objects in space.
So a robot arm would be fine, because even though it stays in one place, it's manipulating something.
I mean, you just referred to it, even with that thing, as a robot arm. Yeah. So, I think that the thing that makes a robot is that it is interacting with the physical space around it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, not to go too deep off on a tangent, but if you put two AI assistants next to each other and then they talk to each other, they're also interacting with the space, even if they're not.
No, I mean, I don't think they're interacting with the space. Like if you put if you put an Oreo in between them, they can't necessarily they can't move the Oreo around. Like I think you have to be. And this is just my personal thing. I think you have to be able to interact with physical objects.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely feel like my definition of robot has changed since I started at Qualcomm. Yeah, the IoT system that I was, the RB3 Gen 2 that I work on the most, I often refer to it as a robot, except it doesn't, it's just the internal chassis, it still is missing its exoskeleton or car or way to move, but it's a potential robot. And I often talk about it like that. Yeah, it wants to be a robot. It's got the eyes. It's got the processing power.
The brain, though.
We have a great question from Peter Bart. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Did you want to read it? Okay, I'll read it. Is a smart window blind? Oh, is a smart window blind a robot? Because it is technically moving up and down.
Interacting with the environment.
Or is the actual mechanic that makes the blind go up and down the robot, and the blind itself is basically the covering?
Well, then you get to the question of at what level of complexity does a robot need to make decisions to be a robot? Because yes, because you wouldn't say that this becomes one of those grids, those 9-panel grids of form, function.
Yep.
You can't say that a spring-loaded door is a robot, even though it's a thing that a door working on a photosensor. You can't say that's a robot, or can you? Most people would not. So where does that? This is so fascinating, but also it does not directly have to do with any of the topics we said we were going to discuss in this hour.
I love your bringing us back to the focus. I will say there has been a request for a Snapdragon exoskeleton, so we'll just put a pin in that one. Would a mobile suit be a robot? I don't think so, because you'd be inside it, unless it was as high tech as I'm completely blanking on Tony Stark.
I think unless it can operate itself while you're unconscious.
Exactly.
And it's
autonomous mobile device. Yeah. I love that Hybrid Robotics put in that the window blind is not a robot because the whole device is not mobile. A robot has
Hybrid Robotics. I would counter that everybody refers to, as Rain was saying, those robot arms that help manufacture cars as robot arms, even though they are fixed to the ground.
Yeah, they're moving, they're interacting with space.
So, much moving around, but having then an additional effect on the environment.
Exactly.
The conversation that always comes up with AI is you get close to philosophy, right? Because you have to talk about consciousness and what does it mean to think and all that. And that's definitely out of the scope for today. But it's, the fight between these subjects, the tech, and then the actual, what we're actually trying to replicate is fascinating.
Yeah, I always like to say, at what point does the autocorrect algorithm become conscious? Because all of these LLMs, I just like to tell people, all of these LLMs are just a really good autocorrect. But of course, what does that mean after a certain point?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I feel like we could definitely turn this into a philosophy conversation, but I hear you have some things off screen, Sasha.
Yes.
Also, can I just say I've seen your Atari in the background. I've seen a lot of movement in the background. That is amazing, especially
It's in
the
a track
Pac-Man. Are you kidding
yeah.
me?
The Pac-Man, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, so I wanted to tell you, I wanted to show you folks what was happening in my background. That was definitely on the agenda.
Yeah.
So I am an extrovert who works at home in a little box, and so that means, among other things, I'm on 5 different social media all the time. But I've also put a lot of interesting things in my background: Tokyo subway map, a couple of dragons, Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 and X Elite chip cases. That thing that has the map, that has the time and the weather on it right now, that is called a Tidbit, Tidbyt. It is a internet-connected programmable LED display.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yep, you can set it up for, there's 200 different things, or if you can write JSON, then you can set up your own stuff for it.
Amazing.
Yeah, and that is not that difficult, as you know. And then down on the next level there, we have Realme's insane 5th anniversary Lego cat that they sent out to people who reviewed Realme phones.
Like you do.
Yeah, and then we have my Atari 8-bit setup, which right now is showing here. I'm gonna take it out of track mode. Here we go. Right now, it's showing an application I wrote that puts headlines about Qualcomm taken from an RSS feed on the Atari.
Nice.
And it has its cute little printer next to it, which prints out the cute little printouts of headlines about Qualcomm.
Yes. What you got on there? Oh, wait. What do you got on there that's...
It's good morning, and then there's 2 lines of text about the weather, and then there's 6 headlines about Qualcomm.
Nice.
And so I did a YouTube video that people might want to see if they're curious about that printer. It's a fun thing. And then recently I've been buying more old Atari stuff, and the pride and joy at the moment, which does not quite work, but which I have to fix up, this beautiful child.
Oh my goodness. You can hook it up to TV.
Well, no, I can hook it up. I can hook it up to that LCD screen back there with the same adapter I'm using. This is an overpriced home computer that was only on sale for 8 months in 1983, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to eventually replacing my orange 800 with this lovely character, but there's a couple of things I need to fix that first. For such,
Did they have external displays on them?
Not in the 80s, typically.
Well, no. So the Atari 800 has composite and S-video outs.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. And so any typically any analog external monitor would work. And for digital, all you need is a $24 converter box.
Yeah.
But Peter, I would say that this is a hobby. It is very easy to get into. There's a lot of, if you want to get an Atari 800 XL on eBay, it's sub $150, and there's a big hobbyist community doing all sorts of homebrew stuff for it, and it's tons of fun. And it's just it's really a hobby that's easy to get into and not horrifyingly expensive, and there's a lot of people doing interesting things.
Yeah, exactly. I am going to wait a couple of years before I dive into the hardware, old school hobbies, because right now I'm just trying to commit to the kernel directly.
You're contributing. Are you contributing to the Linux kernel, right?
Yeah, that's what exactly. So like Linux kernel used to be super intimidating for a lot of reasons. I mean, we're talking about the Linux kernel, so already super intimidating, but it used to be super difficult to contribute to it as well. And there's been a lot of headway in the developer experience space around making it much easier to contribute, even if your C++ or C experience is very low. So yeah, I'm figuring that out right now. That's my current hobby, is actually testing. So one of the things I work with, in case you're new to this show, is the internal experience for a Qualcomm employee to contribute upstream. And so yeah, I've been playing with what it's like to contribute as a Qualcomm employee. It's difficult. It's getting better. Everything I find, I shout about and whatnot. I realize this doesn't have a lot to do with Snapdragon. But that's why I'm staying away.
I think one of the things you're talking about, so that is actually a topic I want to mention specifically in front of this crowd, in front of the crowd listening here, which is that we, and like I'm pointing at Rain, I'm pointing at Nick, but also like everybody who is at Qualcomm now, we are changing Qualcomm.
Yeah.
And this is a marvelously exciting time to be at this company as it changes so radically. Like, how old is this developer Discord?
Yeah, well, technically, it's even older than I know of, but we relaunched it. We basically, when Nick arrived, we wrote this is what it takes to have a healthy online community experience. This is how you nurture your online experience. And then simultaneously, Maria, who is active on the chat, she said, I want to relaunch, not singularly, but I want to relaunch this Discord server and our presence in Stack Overflow and our presence online, not just in socials, because, marketing's got socials. It's great. But for the developer community, this server is, I would say we've been concertedly supporting it for 6 months.
Yeah, and so, like, this is a 40-year-old company, and we're like, the energy that I get from the developer focused folks at this company is very like a startup. And it's very exciting, and it's very powerful, and yeah, sometimes we try things and they don't work. Sometimes we try things and they're harder than we thought they were, and we learn something, and then we're able to do it better next time. Then we're able to do more of it. Then we have learnings. But it's really just this shift of Qualcomm into this developer-facing company.
Yeah.
It's really exciting. It's one of the things that I love seeing on this Discord day after day.
Yeah, 100%. I even in the past, I think Nick and I have been in the developer advocacy space for Qualcomm for 7 months, 8 months, and it's amazing how much has changed. Just in this short period of time. I will say,
I'm gonna stop. Full speed
this
ahead.
This show, like, yeah, it's
full speed ahead. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll also, to add my 2 cents in, I worked at Qualcomm previously. I was a software engineer doing really fun stuff, and I loved it. And be back here on the other side. I keep saying other side internally to Rain, for example, all the time because, being now on the supporting side of developers, I think that the sky's the limit for us. Qualcomm is really focusing on not only the internal engineers, but the external as well, right? And, I'll keep putting out this message. We're going to keep having events. We want to invite everyone to come with us and, be a part of these conversations as we keep going, because it's only with this input and the feedback that we get and this engagement that we're going to be able to really turn this ship around, right? Developers are the decision makers these days, and that in the industry, and it's clear to us, being the developer advocates for Qualcomm, and it's becoming clear more and more to the Qualcomm leadership, and that's why we're getting this powerful pivot that we're getting.
And I would just say, if we can, I'm also kind of at one of the tips of the spear, one of the tips of the trident in communications. If we can't make what you want happen immediately, you should know that we're listening and that your requests and your concerns are affecting the company. It's a large company, and sometimes it takes a while to make things happen, but things are happening. And your input as developers to say, this is what we need, this is how we should go forward, this is how we want to go forward. It's changing things within the company.
Yeah, exactly. For sure, we have 10 minutes left, so post your questions now.
Let's do some more questions. Peter, I'm not answering your silly pool question. You know what the answer is.
That was
Peter's one of the like King insiders. Like, we talk to each other all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously you are human, so your skin did react in a human way.
But I had my hat on, fortunately.
Yeah, exactly.
Ernie is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions in there? Otherwise, I'm just going to start pulling out more show and tell stuff.
All right, show us something. Show us something, and then.
Okay, so along with the Atari 1200 XL, I got this ridiculous piece of kit.
I love that so much.
In the early 1980s, one of the primary methods of personal computer data storage was audio cassettes. And this thing is a cassette player that connects to your Atari computer using these ports to use the cassettes as a form of data storage. And the cassettes looked like this.
What?
Yeah, and so this is the cassette that comes with that as the software for the little printer.
Wow.
And you get all the like the tape running out of the spools and.
Oh yeah, it's a horrible data storage medium.
I love that.
It's incredibly slow. Okay, it's incredibly slow. It's terrifically prone to error. It's like the worst possible data storage medium, but for like a brief period of time, it was cheap, and there were a lot of cassette players out there. So, other thing I wanted to pull out was, so some people who have looked at my video about the little printer, the little printer uses ballpoint pens to print with, and I have an extra tube of them because I wanted to show you the little pens.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So these are the little pens that go in the little printer.
Amazing.
Yes,
adorable.
I got my finger opening a box. Yeah. So the little printer has these 4 little pens that it draws with. It's
amazing.
Yeah.
So 2 questions came in. One was, what AI code generation tools are internal Qualcomm developers embracing? And I'll start that answer, and then you two definitely step up if you like.
I was going to say, Rain, this is one it's the internal tool. You can tell people about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting space to talk about AI generation here, because again, I've only been here 7-8 months, and when I first arrived, there was access to a certain amount of AI tools, inclusive of Copilot, for example. And basically training stepped up, and now there's more of a formality around it. But typically, Qualcomm employees are restricted to using Copilot, and we have this very specific walled off version of Copilot that keeps all the data safe and whatnot. Nick and Sascha, anything to add to that?
Yeah, we're also I can't talk too much about it, I guess, but we're also working on our own code completion. So there's a VS Code plugin that we have as well that's also internal, so similar to Copilot. It's essentially what you would expect from GitHub Copilot, for example, right? Where you're coding and you get the completions, except we have our own internal model that's trained. And there's, a long list of reasons why they've chosen to do that, but that is what's available for our software engineers to write their code. And Sascha, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I would just say that, yes, those are the tools that are used for code. In the marketing department, we have another third-party product called Writer, which isn't used for code, it's used for text. And in general, it's used really heavily to create summaries of things. We pretty frequently have to summarize 50 articles about something, and Writer lets you feed a bunch of stuff into it, answer questions about it, can summarize it for you. It really speeds up that process.
That's amazing. Amazing. I will also add that I want more Qualcomm employee developers. I feel like we do really good with firmware developers, very close to the hardware, of course, because that's what Qualcomm's been doing. But the software developers building apps on top of the hardware and the operating systems, that I would like to see more of, because right now it's Nick and I and a couple other people, and I want more. I want more. So the other question I saw come in from Hybrid Robotics is, will there be a project focus forum on this Discord, a place where developers can post about their projects? And that kind of is what self-promotion is about. But that said, if you were working on a project that was, say, on the compute system, the X Elite or something, I would strongly recommend that you put it in the general chat if you wanted to start talking with other people on it. I have set up a private chat for people testing the RB3 Gen 2, specifically for that purpose, because it is incredibly necessary that developers are able to discuss projects, to troubleshoot together, to be, I'm trying to get this camera to work with that input, and it's just not happening. Has anyone else seen this? So I agree, Hybrid. I think it would be interesting to have I just started to call it BU specific, but a technology specific self-promotion or project based. We could definitely look into having a project channel, especially since it's been live requested on our stream. So way to hack the system and get your question out there. That's exactly what we were supposed to do.
And I'll just say, from a marketing communications perspective, as projects come up from this group on this developer Discord, whether it be a new application optimized for X Elite, or, a new way to use a robotics platform, as these projects become publicly available, this is all stuff that I'm willing to surface internally and externally, and champion internally and externally. And so it's a great way to get it's a great way to get your project into the internal conversation here at Qualcomm, or to get us talking about it externally on social sometimes. But it's definitely this should be a place to get your project seen.
Yeah, agreed.
Oh, right. We also, we talked about content at the beginning of this. I mean, we have plans to also change the types of content that we're putting out too. And so one of the things we've talked about is actually build sessions, right? Live sessions where we sit down, we take. I was just part of a follow-up from that last week where we had a meet and greet with some Microsoft employees as well as our Qualcomm CE who work with engineers specifically. There's on, I believe it's November 17th or the 14th. And if Marie's in the chat, she can share the information, but coming up about AI there. And then, again, we'll have sessions that are similar in here to actually address questions from those. And eventually those will turn into here's how we can build AI apps as well. And, all that good stuff. It's a slow process to get it rolling because we are such a small team. It's Rain and I and a couple others who are really putting these together. But, it's all in our heads because we think like you guys as developers. So we want to support you the best we can.
Yeah, 100%. Sascha, thanks so much for joining us today. This has been Nick and Rain doing a meet and greet with Sascha Segan, who showed us amazing things. Is there anything you want to say on the outro?
No, I mean, I'll just say that 8 Elite devices are starting to hit now. And first of all, don't believe anything you hear about pre-retail devices because they're not quite finished yet. Okay. Right. But when stuff goes to retail, there's going to be a lot of good material out there, a lot of good devices to work with. Thank you to all Qualcomm and Snapdragon developers out there. You folks are on the leading edge. We are on the leading edge with you. Let's change. Let's change this company and change the world.
Yes, love it. Thanks so much, everyone. And Bruce, Nick answered your question. And yes, love these sessions. This was an amazing session. Thank you so much. Have a good day, everyone.
Hi, guys. Thanks, Sascha. Thanks, Rain. See you later, everyone.